Hey, nappy friend. Welcome back to our nappy little club. You're home now, and we saved your spot. Tonight we are stepping back in time. Not to a battlefield or a grand political drama, but to a quieter, more peculiar obsession. We're journeying to Victorian England, a world of steam, iron, and a surprising amount of fuss over flowers. Imagine the dense, damp heat of a jungle you've never seen, the scent of unknown blossoms, and the thrill of finding a living jewel. You probably wouldn't survive the real thing for more than a day. The spiders alone are the size of tea. Saucers, but here, in your cozy space, you are perfectly safe and wonderfully relaxed. We'll do the dangerous part for you. So before your eyelids get too heavy, if you genuinely enjoy what I do here, tap that like button and subscribe to keep our sleepy adventures coming. After all, nobody wants to miss out on history, right? We love to know where our stories are reaching, so feel free to leave a comment telling us where you're listening from and what time it is in your corner of the world. So dim your lights, tune into the soft, comforting fan hum, and ease gently into tonight's journey, because you're now officially in Nappy community. You're not just listening, you're an essential part of our Nappy family, where every night is soothing, special, and yours. You're safe, valued, and always welcome. The year is 1851, and the air in your small London apartment is thick with the taste of coal smoke and damp wool. Outside your window, a persistent, dreary drizzle paints the cobbled streets in shades of gray. You are Arthur Blackwood, a botanical illustrator, and your world, for the most part, is one of precise lines and muted watercolors. Your desk is a calm island in the city's chaos, littered with sketches of English bluebells, foxgloves, and the humble daisy. It is respectable work, quiet work, but lately it is felt as gray as the London sky. Something new, a strange end. Vibrant fever has seeped into the very drawing rooms that buy your art. It's a fever for a single type of flower, a plant so exotic and temperamental that its possession has become the ultimate mark of status. They call it Orchidelirium. You first feel the true heat of this fever not in a garden, but at a dinner party hosted by one of your lesser patrons. The room is overwarm, smelling of roasted meat, beeswax, and the damp coats of the guests. The men, their whiskers trimmed to perfection, are not discussing politics or the great exhibition. They are speaking in hushed, excited tones about orchids. Not the delicate native orchids you might find in an English meadow, but monstrous, beautiful aliens from the farthest reaches of the empire. They speak of the Duke of Devonshire's collection at Chatsworth, a veritable palace of glass built to house these floral treasures. A man to your left, a portly industrialist who made his fortune in textiles, boasts of acquiring a cattleya, a yet unflowered specimen from Brazil, for a price that could have purchased a handsome carriage and horses. You listen, pretending to. Be absorbed in your port and realize that these men are not just talking about flowers. They are talking about power. An orchid, you begin to understand, is not just a plant. It is a declaration of wealth, taste, and a connection to the mysterious, unconquered world. This is the well-documented reality of your time, the Victorian orchid mania. It's a curious chapter in history, where a flower became more precious than gold. To possess a rare orchid was to own something no one else could easily obtain. Unlike a painting by a dead master or a family jewel, an orchid was a living, breathing testament to one's influence. It required a private hunter to risk his life. In a malaria-ridden swamp, a custom-built greenhouse heated by a small mountain of coal, and a team of highly skilled gardeners to keep it from ignominiously perishing in the English damp. It was the ultimate piece of conspicuous consumption, a delicate, beautiful, and fantastically expensive way of telling the world you had well and truly arrived. A few weeks later, your curiosity gets the better of you. You find yourself at Stevens's. Auction rooms in Covent Garden, a place that has become the global epicenter of the orchid trade. The room is packed with gentlemen, but it is eerily quiet. There are no flowers here. Instead, on the display tables are what look to you like sad. Brown lumps of roots and dried leaves, packed in moss within wooden crates. These are the orchids, dormant and to your artist's eye, deeply uninspiring. The auctioneer begins the bidding for a specimen of Phalaenopsis amabilis, a white moth orchid from the Philippines. He doesn't describe its beauty. He describes the harrowing tale of its collection, a rival hunter who died of fever trying to find it. The bidding is fierce and swift. Men nod almost imperceptibly, their faces grim. The gavel falls on a price that makes you inwardly gasp. It is more than you earn in 5 years for a twig, a dead-looking twig. This is one of the more eccentric facets of the obsession, one almost lost to history. The willingness to spend a fortune on a plant that might never bloom, or worse, might turn out to be a completely common species. It was a gamble of the highest order, waged in a silent room in the middle of London Dot as you walk home, the drizzle soaking the shoulders of your coat. You find yourself pondering the nature of this obsession. Historians of the future will debate this very question. Was this a genuine, if extravagant, extension of the Victorian passion for natural science? A desire to catalog and understand God's creation in all its wondrous forms? Or was it something else entirely? Was it simply a way for the nouveau rich, the factory owners and the railroad barons, to create a new aristocratic battlefield? They couldn't buy ancient bloodlines or hereditary estates, but they could outbid anyone on a strange, beautiful life form hauled from a jungle halfway across the world. You suspect the truth, as it often does, lies somewhere in the murky middle. It is both a scientific quest and a vulgar display of cash. That night, unable to sleep, you light your gas lamp. You pull out a fresh sheet of heavy paper, not for another primrose, but for something from your imagination. You think of the stories, the whispers of undiscovered species. You sketch a flower with petals like spun moonlight, a ghostly white against a backdrop of dark jungle leaves. You imagine it growing on a single mist-shrouded mountain in Borneo. It is a fantasy, a product of auction house fever and an artist's dream. But as you add the final delicate veins to a petal, you feel a shift within you. You no longer want to just paint the flowers that arrive in London. You want to be the one to find them. This drawing, this Phalaenopsis spectra, as you decide to call it, feels like the first step. It is no longer just an illustration. It is a map of your own desires. Your fantastical drawing of the ghost orchid does not remain in your quiet apartment for long. You make a print, a single high-quality lithograph, and display it among your more conventional works at a small exhibition. Most viewers pass it, by their eyes searching for the familiar comfort of an English rose or a Scottish thistle. But it catches the eye of a few connoisseurs, the ones whose hunger for novelty has been sharpened by the orchid fever. They murmur amongst themselves, wondering aloud if such a thing could truly exist. You, of course, say nothing, allowing the mystery to deepen. You let the ink and paper do the talking. For a week, nothing happens. Then, a letter arrives. It is delivered not by the common postman, but by a footman in a severe black livery, who hands it to you without a word and vanishes back into the London fog. The paper is so thick it feels like a slice of ivory, and the wax seal bears a crest you do not recognize, a boar's head over a crossed quill and spyglass. The note within is brief and commanding. You are requested to attend upon Lord Harrington at his Mayfair residence regarding your speculative rendering of a possible Phalaenopsis. A name sends a slight tremor through your hand. Lord Harrington is a legend wrapped in rumor. He is spoken of in the same breath as the great collecting dukes and earls, yet no one has seen him at an auction in years. They say he is a recluse, impossibly wealthy from colonial trade, and that he wages his horticultural wars from the shadowy confines of his library, dispatching hunters to the ends of the earth like a general deploying troops. To be summoned by him is like being invited to an audience with a king, albeit a king whose kingdom is made of glass, steam, and petals. You put on your best coat, the one you save for meetings with important patrons, and make your way to a quiet, unnervingly pristine square in Mayfair. His townhouse is a monolith of dark stone, the windows like vacant eyes. A severe butler ushers you into a study that smells of old paper, leather, and something faintly spicy, like cinnamon or dried cloves. The room is a testament to a life of obsessive collecting. Glass cabinets hold shimmering beetles, drawers are filled with seashells, and every wall is consumed by towering bookshelves groaning with volumes bound in dark leather. And there, behind a massive mahogany desk, sits Lord Harrington. He is, smaller than the legends suggest, a frail man lost in a wingback chair. His skin is pale and thin as antique parchment, but his eyes are startlingly alert, two chips of blue ice that track your every movement. Your drawing of the ghost orchid is laid out on the desk before him, the only spot of white in a sea of dark wood and leather. He gestures for you to sit, his voice a dry rustle. Mr. Blackwood, you draw fantasies. It is not a question. You feel a flush of embarrassment, ready to defend your artistic license, but he raises a thin, blue-veined hand. It is a compelling fantasy. So compelling, in fact, that I believe it. May be true. He explains that your drawing bears a startling resemblance to a description in a letter he received years ago from a naturalist in his employ. The man wrote of a pale, luminous orchid seen on a high ridge in Borneo, just before he succumbed to a jungle fever. The letter was fragmented, the location maddeningly vague. But your drawing has rekindled his ambition. This is the way of your world, a well-established fact of Orchidelirium. Men like Lord Harrington do not risk their own necks. They fund the expeditions. He makes you an offer, his voice never rising above a whisper. He will cover every expense. Your passage on the Shah, fastest ship, all necessary equipment, funds to hire local guides. He will make you a wealthy man upon your return. In exchange, everything you find, every orchid, every fern, every seed, every insect, belongs to him. Your name, he assures you, will be forever attached to the discovery of the Phalaenopsis. Spectra, should you find it, you will have the fame. He will have the flower. Then he unrolls the map. The word map is, you feel, a generous overstatement. It is a piece of tracing paper, a rough, shaky outline of a river system on the northern coast of Borneo. A single smudged X is marked deep inland. Beside it, a few cryptic notes are scrawled. 2 days upstream from the Crocodile Rock. Follow the trail of the white-crested hornbill, where the air grows cold and smells of stone. This is it. This is the guide to your future, your life's great adventure. It looks less like a cartographer's tool and more like something a child would draw to mark buried treasure in his back garden. This, you know from whispers at the auction houses, is a shockingly common curiosity of your profession. The maps are almost always terrible based on third-hand accounts, deliberately misleading information from rivals, or the fever dreams of dying men. Your life will depend on this flimsy, cryptic piece of paper. You stand there, the silence of the room, pressing in on you. You look from the ridiculous map to the intense, unblinking eyes of the old man in the chair, and you feel the weight of the academic question that future historians will ponder. What is the true nature of your relationship? Are you an explorer, a bold agent of science charting the unknown? Or are you merely a glorified servant, a disposable piece of equipment like the new, state-of-the-art barometer he has also promised you? The contract he slides across the desk makes the terms brutally clear. He is not responsible for your health, your safety, or your life. Your discoveries, however, are legally and bindingly his property. You are a pawn in his game, but you are also the pawn that could cross the board and become a queen. The debate is not abstract to you. It is the very substance of the choice you are about to make. Are you an employee or a partner? A hero or a tool? The gray London drizzle outside the window seems to represent your life as it is now. Safe, predictable, and utterly colorless. This map, this absurd and dangerous quest, is a splash of vibrant, terrifying color. You think of the men at the auction house, bidding fortunes on dried-up roots. You could be the man who provides those roots. Your name could be whispered with the same reverence as that of the great collectors. You pick up the pen. The desire to live a life that will be remembered, to escape the crushing anonymity of the great city, is stronger than your fear. I accept. You say, your voice steadier than you expected. You sign your name, the scratch of the nib loud in the silent room. The deal is done. Leaving the dark house, you step back into the cool, damp air of London. The world looks the same, but the ground beneath your feet feels different. You are no longer just an illustrator. You are an orchid hunter. The title feels less like a hen. Honor and more like a sentence that has just been passed down. A thrilling, terrifying verdict on the rest of your life. The deal with Lord Harrington transforms your life overnight. The abstract, romantic notion of being an orchid hunter dissolves into a cascade of practical and, frankly, overwhelming tasks. Your small, quiet apartment becomes a headquarters for a miniature military campaign, the target of which is a single, possibly imaginary, flower. Lord Harrington's funds arrive in a series of discreet bank drafts, and with them, lists. Long, detailed lists written in his spidery hand, specifying everything from the thread count of your canvas tent to the precise chemical composition of the arsenic solution used for preserving insect specimens. You are no longer just an artist. You are a quartermaster, a logistics manager, and the sole foot soldier for an army of one. Your first and most crucial task is the construction of the Wardian cases. You find yourself in a workshop near the Thames, a cavernous space that smells richly of freshly sawn mahogany, hot pitch, and the damp, earthy scent of the nearby river. Here, you are not just buying boxes. You are overseeing the creation of miniature, mobile worlds. This is the direct result of a happy accident by Dr. Nathaniel Bagshaw Ward some 20 years prior. This historical fact is the very bedrock of your new profession. Dr. Ward, a London physician and amateur botanist, had placed a moth chrysalis in a sealed glass jar with some damp soil. A week later, he noticed that not only had the moth emerged, but a tiny fern and a blade of grass had sprouted and were thriving. He realized he had stumbled upon a secret of nature. A sealed container created a self-sustaining ecosystem. The plants would release moisture through transpiration, which would then condense on the glass and rain back down, watering the soil. This simple, elegant discovery revolutionized everything. It broke the tyranny of the sea voyage. Before the Wardian case, transporting delicate tropical plants was a near impossibility. The salty sea spray and lack of fresh water would kill them within days. Now, thanks to Dr. Ward's observation, you can build a tiny piece of the Bornean jungle and carry it safely home. You watch as craftsmen, with the precision of fine cabinet makers, fit panes of glass into grooved mahogany frames, sealing every joint with hot black tar to make it airtight. They are beautiful objects, like tiny crystal palaces, designed not for display, but for survival. Your preparations take you to the grimy, bustling heart of London's docklands. In chandleries that smell of rope and canvas, you purchase equipment from Lord Harrington's list. Sturdy leather boots with thick soles, oilskin bags to protect your journals, a field microscope, and a small, terrifyingly sharp machete that feels awkward and alien in your artist's hand. You also purchase a large bottle of quinine powder, the only known defense against the fevers of the tropics, a substance so bitter it makes your teeth ache just from looking at it. It is in these places, the supply shops and the smoky, low-ceilinged pubs that cater to sailors and explorers, that you meet other men of your new tribe. They are a strange breed, their faces tanned and weathered, their eyes holding a look you can't quite place, a mixture of deep-seated weariness and a restless, hungry energy. They are full of stories. This is a peculiar and almost ritualistic part of the hunter's life, a currency of dailies traded over warm beer. These stories are a blend of genuine warning, boastful exaggeration, and deliberate misinformation, designed to protect their own secret hunting grounds. One evening, a gaunt man with a prosthetic iron hook for a hand tells you a hushed story about the highlands of Colombia, where a species of black orchid, the Dracula vampira, is guarded by giant spectral bats that drain the life from you as you sleep. Another hunter, who has just returned from Burma, speaks of a tribe that worships a fire orange, dendrobium, and can track a man for 100 miles through impenetrable jungle if he so much as touches a single petal. The tales get wilder as the night wears on. Vines that mimic the cries of human babies, swamps that swallow you whole in an instant, and of course, the ever-present rumor of a man-eating plant. You listen intently, your pen scratching away in. Your journal, trying to distill the truth from the fiction. You make a sober note. Beware of orchids that appear too easy to acquire. And, with a touch of dry humor only you will ever read, query, do spectral bats dislike the taste of quinine? The most serious advice, however, comes from Lord Harrington himself, delivered in another of his terse letters. It concerns the greatest danger of all, jungle fever or malaria. Here, you are confronted with one of the great medical debates of your era. The letter is filled with warnings against miasma. He instructs you to always make camp on high, breezy ground, far from the Yas. Noxious effluvia and pestilential vapors that rise from the swamps at dawn and dusk. This is the miasma theory, the widely accepted belief that diseases like malaria and cholera are caused by bad air emitted by decaying organic matter. The idea that a tiny, buzzing insect could be the true culprit has not yet taken hold in the scientific community. The debate is fierce in the pages of The Lancet. Is the fever in the air? In the water? Is it a punishment from God? You are being armed with the best scientific knowledge of 1851. And that knowledge is, you suspect, dangerously wrong. Lord Harrington's instructions are to fight a smell. You pack extra mosquito netting anyway. A practical decision based on the simple annoyance of being bitten, not on any advanced medical theory. The irony is as thick as the London fog. You are preparing to face down phantom bats and killer trees, while the true microscopic enemy isn't even on your list of official foes. Finally, the day of departure arrives. Your Wardian cases, 6 of them, are lined up on the docks at the Port of London, their glass panes gleaming in the weak sunlight. They look like a strange, fragile hope chest for a future you cannot yet see. Your canvas bags are packed. Your new boots feel stiff and unfamiliar, and the weight of the machete at your belt is a constant, heavy reminder of the world you are about to enter. The stories of the hunters are a low hum in the back of your mind. You look at your hands, hands that know the feel of charcoal, paper, and watercolor brushes. You wonder if they will learn the feel of a trigger, a paddle, and the clinging mud of a jungle floor. You are terrified. But beneath the fear is a deep, thrilling current of anticipation. The ship's horn bellows, a deep, resonant sound that vibrates in your chest. It is time. You walk up the gangplank, leaving the gray city behind. The gray cliffs of Dover shrink behind you, becoming a chalky smudge on the horizon before disappearing entirely. The shouting of the dock workers and the cries of the gulls are replaced by a new, constant symphony. The rhythmic creak of the ships, timbers, the low groan of the rigging under strain, and the percussive snap of the great canvas sails as they catch the wind. The initial thrill of departure, the feeling of momentous change, quickly settles into something else, something vast, quiet, and deeply monotonous. You are at sea, and the sea is, above all else, an exercise in patience. Your world shrinks to the confines of this wooden vessel, a floating village of a few hundred souls, adrift in an endless, shifting expanse of water-dot days bleed into weeks with little to distinguish them. You fall into a routine governed by the ship's bell and the position of the sun. This is the unglamorous, often unwritten, truth of the great Victorian expeditions, the sheer, soul-crushing boredom of the journey. The heroic tailies always focus on the jungle, the discovery, the triumphant return. They conveniently edit out the months of waiting, of seeing nothing but the same slate gray or sapphire blue water, day after day after day. You spend hours leaning against the rail, watching the waves crest and fall, your mind empty. You fill your sketchbook with the subtle variations in the clouds, the shape of the waves, the tired faces of the sailors. Your main occupation becomes one of maintenance. The sea air, you quickly learn, is a relentless enemy. It is a damp, salty breath that seeks to corrode everything made of iron and steel. Each morning, you methodically unpack your toolkit. You wipe down your trowels, your knives, and your soil-sampling auger with an oilcloth, leaving a protective sheen. You disassemble and clean the delicate brass components of your field microscope, ensuring no speck of salt can tarnish the lenses. You check the pitch seals on your Wardian cases, running your fingers along the seams, praying they hold against the constant, subtle motion of the ship. This quiet, repetitive work becomes a ritual, a way to anchor yourself in the vast emptiness. It is a small, controllable task in a world where you are utterly at the mercy of the wind and tides dot at night. The world transforms. You escape the stuffy confines of your small cabin and go on deck. The sky is a revelation. As you sail south, the familiar constellations of Home the Plow, Cassiopeia sink towards the northern horizon. The North Star, the anchor of every English navigator, disappears. In its place, new, brilliant arrangements of stars emerge from the southern darkness. You see the Southern Cross for the first time, a stark, beautiful guidepost in a sky you do not know. It is during these quiet nights that you become aware of the subtle, constant tension surrounding the ship's navigation. You watch the captain and his first mate on the quarterdeck, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of a lantern as they handle their sextants and chronometers. You hear their hushed, sometimes tense, discussions. The lunar distance puts us a dozen miles east of the chronometer's reading. The mate will mutter. This is the quiet, lingering echo of the great longitude problem. While Harrison's marine chronometers were a revolutionary invention, they were still fantastically expensive, delicate instruments. Not every ship had one, and those that did often kept it as a temperamental master, to be checked against the old, reliable, but less precise method of measuring the moon's position against the stars. You realize that your precise location on this vast ocean is still a matter of expert calculation, but also of debate and uncertainty. Knowing that your position is a nightly argument between the captain and his instruments makes the X on your rudimentary map feel not just distant, but fundamentally abstract. The crushing monotony is broken one blistering hot afternoon with a sudden explosion of chaos. A lookout cries, "Land ho!" But it is a lie. The cry is a signal. The ship is crossing the equator, and you, along with a half dozen other first-timers, are polywogs. You are about to be subjected to one of the sea's most eccentric and time-honored traditions. The veteran sailors, the shellbacks, emerge from the forecastle, their faces gleeful. They are led by a burly bosun dressed as King Neptune, wearing a crown of seashells, a beard of unraveled rope, and brandishing a pitchfork as his trident. You are seized, dragged before his court, and accused of ridiculous crimes against the sea. You are then shaved by Neptune's barbers, who use a giant notched razor made of wood and lather your face with a foul-smelling mixture of tar and grease. Finally, you are unceremoniously tipped backwards into a large canvas tub of seawater. It is rough, undignified, and strangely exhilarating. It is a moment of pure anarchic theater, a ritual designed to wash away the hierarchies of the land and initiate you into the true kingdom of the sea. You emerge, dripping, sputtering, and smelling faintly of pitch, but you are no longer an outsider. You are a son of Neptune God in the weeks that follow. Something in the air changes. It is not just the memory of the ceremony. It is the air itself. It grows thick, humid, and heavy, clinging to your skin. The sun is no longer a distant, pale disk, but a white-hot weight in the sky. Flying fish, like slivers of silver, skitter across the impossibly blue water alongside the ship. The sunsets become violent, theatrical displays, smearing the horizon with strokes of deep orange, pink, and violet that you ache to capture with your watercolors. But the colors are too vivid, too fleeting. You can feel the tropics. The long, empty stillness is coming to an end. One morning, you stand at the prow, and for the first time, you can smell it on the wind. It's a scent you've never experienced before. A rich, loamy perfume of damp, earth, decaying leaves, and the sweet fragrance of unseen flowers. It is the scent of land. The great blue desert is almost crossed. The solitude of the sea is about to be replaced by the solitude of the jungle, and you find you are not sure. Which is more daunting? The waiting is over. The adventure you signed up for is finally about to begin. After 97 days at sea, the lookout's cry of land ho is real this time. At first, it's just a low, dark green smudge on the horizon. But as the hours pass, the smudge resolves into the coastline of Borneo. It is a sight so intensely green, it almost hurts your eyes, which have grown accustomed to the endless blues and grays of the ocean. Your ship navigates its way up a wide, muddy river to a small trading post, a place called Kuching, carved out of the jungles. Edge, this small outpost of civilization, ruled by the Englishman James Brooke, the so-called White Raja, is your gateway to the world you have only, until now, imagined. As you step off the gangplank onto a rickety wooden pier, the world assaults. You. It is a physical blow, a sensory onslaught that makes you stagger. This is the profound and well-documented culture shock that greets so many Europeans upon their arrival in the tropics. The first thing that hits you is the heat. It is not the dry, pleasant warmth of a rare English summer day. It is a solid, wet, living thing. The air is so thick with humidity, it feels like you are breathing water. Your sensible tweed traveling coat, which felt so comforting in London, instantly becomes a personal steam bath, clinging to your skin, weighing you down. Then comes the sound. The relative peace of the ship is shattered by a deafening, relentless wall of noise. It is a multi-layered chorus of a million invisible things. The high-pitched, electric whine of insects, the guttural croaking of frogs, the shrieks and calls of birds you cannot see, all layered over a constant, deep, humming vibration that seems to emanate from the very soil. It is the sound of life at a fever pitch, and it is utterly overwhelming. The smells, too, are overpowering, a thick, complex perfume of sweet, rotting fruit, damp earth, wood smoke, and a cloying floral scent that is both beautiful and nauseating. Your First task is to hire the local guides Lord Harrington's agent has arranged. You make your way through the small, chaotic settlement, a jumble of wooden shacks on stilts, a bustling market where Chinese traders barter with Malay fishermen and stern-looking Dayak men from the interior. Your formal, Queen's English is clumsy and mostly useless here. Finally, you find your men. They are two brothers, lean and silent, their skin the color of polished teak. They look at your sweat-soaked wool clothing and your pale, overwhelmed face with an expression of quiet, unreadable amusement. You feel soft, clumsy, and absurdly overdressed. They communicate in gestures and a few words of pidgin English. They will take you upriver, they indicate, starting the next morning. That afternoon, needing to escape the press of the small town, you take your first tentative steps into the jungle itself, just beyond the last hut. The moment you are under the canopy, the world changes again. The direct, brutal sunlight is gone, replaced by a dim, green-tinted twilight. You sit on a fallen log, its surface damp and spongy, and pull out your journal, intending to record. Your first impressions. Your hand is trembling slightly. The sheer, vibrant, almost violent greenness of everything is disorienting. Life is bursting from every surface. Ferns sprout from the bark of trees. Moss carpets every stone, and thick. Vines, called lianas, hang down from the unseen canopy like thick, twisted ropes. You feel an immense sense of agoraphobia and claustrophobia all at once. It is then, as you stare at the blank page, that something of impossible beauty occurs. A butterfly, larger than your hand, flutters down from the canopy and lands silently on the edge of your open journal. Its wings are not blue, but a shimmering, incandescent electric blue, a color so pure and vivid, it seems to be made of liquid light. You hold your breath. You know from your studies that this is the other great obsession of the Victorian naturalist, a passion that often went hand in hand with orchid hunting. Men like the great Alfred Russel Wallace, who was at this very moment somewhere in the Malay archipelago, were funding their entire expeditions by collecting rare butterflies and beetles for wealthy collectors back in England. Lord Harrington's contract had been explicit. Insect specimens were just as valuable as botanical ones. Tucked in your pack is a killing jar filled with cyanide-soaked plaster and a box of delicate pins for this very purpose. The scientific, commercial impulse screams at you to grab your net, to capture this perfect specimen. It would fetch a handsome price. But the artist in you, the man who spent years trying to capture beauty with mere pigment and water, is utterly mesmerized. You simply watch as the butterfly gently fans its wings, a spot of cool, electric blue in the hot green. Inferno. After a long moment, it flutters away, vanishing back into the endless green. You are left with the memory of it, a vision more potent than any physical specimen dot as you sit there in the ringing silence that follows, the insectal choir still raging around you. You feel the two great, competing European narratives of the jungle warring inside you. It's a debate that rages in the pages of scientific journals and popular magazines back home. And now it is raging within your own heart. Part of you is in awe. This is a kind of Eden, a world of staggering fecundity and untamed beauty. A testament to a creator with a wild, unrestrained imagination. It makes the manicured gardens of England, with their straight lines and tamed roses, seem pathetic and sterile. But another, more primal part of you is terrified. The chaos, the relentless, suffocating growth, the constant cycle of life and violent death, it feels profoundly threatening. This is not a garden. It is a battlefield. It is the green hell of the sensationalist writers, a place that doesn't nurture life so much as choke it out in a desperate, tangled struggle for sunlight. It feels alien, amoral, and deeply hostile to a soft, thin-skinned creature like yourself. You dip your pen in your traveling inkwell and write in your journal. One moment, I believe I have found God's private cathedral. The next, I am certain, I have stumbled into his abattoir. I find I cannot decide which is the truth. You retreat to your small, stifling room at the trading post as evening falls. The sound of the jungle does not diminish with the darkness. It intensifies. Your ears ring, your clothes are damp, and your mind is a jumble of awe and dread. The romantic image of the orchid hunter, born in a cool, foggy London study, has shattered upon its first contact with the hot, breathing, terrifying reality of the jungle. The X on your map no longer seems like the mark of a great discovery, but the potential site of your own quiet, anonymous disappearance. The long, narrow canoe, a prahu carved from a single log, glides through the brown, placid water of the river. The chaotic noise of the trading post has faded, replaced by the rhythmic splash of your guide's paddles and the ever-present thrumming chorus of the jungle. You are moving deeper into the green heart of Borneo, and with every mile, you feel the last vestiges of your old world peeling away. The life of an orchid hunter, you quickly discover, is not one of thrilling chases and dramatic discoveries. It is a life of routine, of patience, and of a slow, grinding, methodical search. Your days fall into a rhythm dictated by the sun and the river. You wake at dawn, your body stiff and damp from the humidity that even your canvas tent cannot repel. After a breakfast of dry biscuits and coffee, boiled over a small fire, you conduct a ritualistic check for leeches before joining your guides. Banyan and his younger brother Kale, in the canoe dot, they paddle for an hour or so before nosing the canoe. Into the muddy bank, you disembark, and the hunt begins. This is the reality of your work, the historical truth behind the romantic stories. It is, in essence, a very long, very slow walk in the woods. Your guides move with a silent, economic grace that you envy, their bare feet making no sound on the leaf litter. You, by contrast, feel like a walking disaster, your heavy boots crunching on twigs, your clothing snagging on thorns, your every movement a noisy intrusion. You force yourself to slow down, to adopt the hunter's posture, head tilted back, eyes scanning, moving with a snail-like pace. You examine every tree, from its base to the highest branches you can see, looking for the telltale signs of an orchid. You are searching for the distinct, often swollen shape of a pseudobulb, the silvery white filigree of aerial roots clinging to bark, or the specific leaf shape of a genus you recognize from books. Hours pass in this neck straining, eye aching state. The jungle's constant hum becomes a kind of white noise. Your mind wanders. The heat is a physical weight. You are drenched in sweat, and your focus blurs. You have to constantly pull yourself back to the task, forcing your eyes to see past the overwhelming green and look for the subtle anomalies that signal the presence of your quarry. For days, you find nothing of note. Frustration, hot and useless. Emotion in this climate begins to build. You are the expert, the man from London with the scientific knowledge, yet you are proving to be remarkably bad at your own job. It is Banyan, your elder guide, who teaches you your most important lesson. One afternoon, as you stare blankly at a massive tree, he stops, grunts, and points high into the canopy. You follow his finger, squinting into the green gloom. You see nothing but a tangle of leaves and vines. With a quiet sigh that is part pity, part exasperation, Banyan shimmies up the tree with a speed and agility that seems to defy gravity. He returns moments later with a small plant in his hand, its roots clinging to a piece of bark. It's an orchid, a species of coelogine, you think, and it was right above your head the entire time. In that moment, you understand a crucial, if rarely advertised, curiosity of your trade, the vital role of the native collector. Your European eyes, trained on neat gardens and open fields, are simply not equipped for this environment. These men who have spent their entire lives here see the jungle not as a chaotic wall of green, but as a familiar, legible text. You change your strategy. That evening, you show them your detailed drawings, including the fantastical ghost orchid. You explain, through a mixture of gesture and pigeon, what you seek, and you offer them a payment, a few silver coins for each valuable specimen. They nod, their expressions unreadable. Your relationship has subtly shifted. You are no longer the great leader of the expedition. You are the director, the curator, the paymaster. Your future heroic portrait in the Illustrated London News, you reflect with a touch of irony, will almost certainly not feature banyan and kale. With your guides now actively searching, the discoveries begin. They bring you small, fascinating plants, their roots carefully wrapped in moss. And as you examine each one, you find yourself drawn into one of the great botanical debates of your time. You notice that a certain type of orchid only grows on the decaying bark of one specific species of tree. Another, a tiny, almost microscopic specimen, is found with its roots deeply enmeshed in a specific web-like fungus that seems to be digesting the wood around it. Are these connections a coincidence? Or are they fundamental to the plant's survival? In the greenhouses of England, botanists are arguing over this very problem. They know that orchids are notoriously capricious, often refusing to grow and bloom once removed from their native habitat. Some argue it is merely a matter of getting the temperature and humidity right. But a more radical school of thought, one you are beginning to subscribe to, suggests something far more complex. You suspect that the orchid is not a solitary individual, but merely the visible, flowering part of a hidden network of relationships. It depends on a specific fungus to germinate its seeds, a specific insect to pollinate its flowers, and a specific tree to provide the perfect chemical and physical foundation. You are not just collecting a flower. You are tearing a single, beautiful thread from an ancient, intricate tapestry. The thought is both scientifically exhilarating and profoundly unsettling. One sweltering afternoon, your own moment finally arrives. You are not following your guides, but have paused to rest against a fallen, moss-covered log. As you swat a mosquito from your cheek, your eyes catch a flicker of unusual color. You lean closer. There, emerging from the damp, green moss, is a flower. It is a tiny thing, no bigger than your thumbnail, a perfect, waxy, deep maroon jewel, with a hinged, quivering lip that dances in the slightest breeze. A bulbophyllum, you think? It is not the ghost orchid. It will not make you famous or rich, but it is the first one you have found entirely on your own. A slow, deep feeling of satisfaction washes over you. There is no audience, no applause, just the quiet hum of the jungle and this tiny, perfect secret. With the delicate touch of an illustrator, you use your knife to gently pry its cluster of small pseudobulbs from the rotting wood, taking care to get all the roots and a good chunk of the moss they are growing in. You wrap it reverently in a damp cloth and place it in your collecting pouch. It is not a victory, but a connection. That evening, by the flickering light of your oil lamp, you record the day's finds in your journal. A handful of small, precious plants lie carefully arranged on a cloth beside you. The jungle is no longer an abstract, terrifying entity. It is becoming a place of subtle details, of specific patterns, of tiny, hidden wonders. The hunt is nothing like the grand adventure you had imagined in London. It is quieter, slower, and infinitely more intricate. And you are finally, slowly, learning to speak its silent language. The hunt is over. After 3 long months that have felt like a lifetime, you have returned from the interior to the small port of Kuching. Your body is thinner, hardened by the trail, your skin tanned to a deep brown, and etched with the faint scars of 100 scratches and insect bites. You have not found your mythical ghost orchid, a Phalaenopsis spectra from your drawing. That particular fantasy remains a fantasy, but your collection is, by any other measure, a staggering success. You have crates containing dozens of specimens, including what you believe are at least 5 species entirely new to science. Now, however, comes the most delicate and nerve-wracking part of the entire expedition, preparing your fragile treasures for the long voyage home. The process transforms you from a hunter-back into a meticulous, anxious gardener docked in a sheltered workshop. You unpack and inspect each plant. With the gentle precision of a surgeon, you place each orchid into the prepared soil inside the 6 Wardian cases. You arrange them carefully, ensuring the larger plants don't block the light from the smaller ones. You are attempting to recreate a tiny, balanced slice of the Bornean ecosystem, a miniature world under glass. When the last plant is settled, you fit the heavy glass lids, sealing the edges with hot, black pitch that smells sharp and acrid in. The humid air. Your Wardian cases are no longer just clever inventions. They have become your sacred arks. They are sealed repositories of your hope, your ambition, and the entire justification for the risks you have taken. They hold your future. The journey back across the ocean is a different kind of torment from the voyage out. The slow, boring days are gone, replaced by a constant humming anxiety. You are no longer an idle passenger. You are a custodian, a guardian, a zookeeper for a silent and demanding menagerie. This is a well-known fact among your kind. Bringing the plants home is often harder than finding them in the first place. The mortality rate for shipments, even with the benefit of the cases, is terrifyingly high. A single cracked pane of glass, letting in salt spray, a careless steward leaving a case in the direct equatorial sun for too long, a sudden, unexpected frost as you near the English Channel. Any of these could wipe out your entire collection. Your life becomes a cycle of nervous rituals. In the morning, you are on deck, wiping the internal condensation from the glass to let in the weak morning light. In the harsh midday sun, you drape the cases with canvas to prevent the plants from being cooked. As the ship sails north into colder latitudes, you cover them with thick wool blankets at night, like tucking children into bed. Every day is a battle, and every morning that you peer through the glass and see green, living leaves is a quiet, profound victory. A curious thing happens among the crew. On the journey out, you were simply a strange gentleman with a pile of empty glass boxes. Now, you are the keeper of a mystery. The sailors, initially dismissive, develop a fascination with your fragile cargo. This orchid fever is a peculiar but common phenomenon on the long return voyages. They gather around the cases in there. Off hours, their weathered faces pressed against the glass, peering at the strange, alien shapes within. They give the plants nicknames. A long, trailing orchid with fuzzy roots becomes the old man's beard. A spiky, aggressive-looking bromeliad is christened the Sergeant Major. A sailor from Liverpool, a man named Finn, becomes particularly invested. He starts a small, informal betting pool on which of the larger orchids will be the first to show signs of new growth. He will seek you out to offer advice. The Sergeant Major's looking a bit pale this morning, sir. He'll say, might want to shift him out of the wind. Your scientific expedition has become a source of entertainment and speculation. Your strange glass arcs have become a part of the ship's folklore, a shared object of curiosity that helps to break the soul-crushing monotony of the sea. During the long, quiet afternoons, as you sit watch over your cases, the vastness of the ocean gives you time to think. And it is here that a quiet, unsettling debate begins in your own mind. It is a question of ethics, a question that future generations will label bioprospecting and biopracy. You think of your guides, Banyan and Kale. You paid them the agreed-upon price, a sum that would have seemed generous in London, but felt small in the face of their immense skill and knowledge. Were they fairly compensated for revealing the secrets of their home? You look at the plants, living things sealed in glass boxes, forever removed from the intricate web of life that sustained them. You tell yourself you are a man of science, expanding human knowledge and preserving fragile beauty for the appreciation of a wider world. But another voice, a quieter one, asks if you are not simply a thief, a well-intentioned and educated thief. Perhaps, but a thief nonetheless. You are an agent of an empire that has grown powerful by taking what it wants from distant lands, be it timber, tea, or living jewels like these. Historians will argue over this for centuries. Or the orchid. Hunters, heroic scientists, or colonial predators? You feel the truth of both accusations. You believe in the importance of your work, yet you cannot shake a quiet, persistent sense of unease, a feeling that you have incurred a debt you will never be able to repay. One evening, you write in your journal a thought you would never dare. Say aloud, "In London, they will call me an explorer. But I know that in the jungle, there is likely a different word for what I have done." After what feels like an eternity, land is sighted once more. But this time, it is the pale, chalky cliffs of the English coast, hazy in the cool northern light. A profound sense of relief washes over you, so potent it almost brings you to your knees. But it is followed immediately by a final, sharp spike of anxiety. The journey is almost over, but the danger is not. The transfer from the ship, the jostling journey on a cart through the chaotic streets of London, the final delivery to Lord Harrington's estate. The plants have survived the jungle and the ocean, but they could still be lost on a poorly paved road in Kent. You stand on the deck as the ship navigates the mouth of the Thames, a returning hero in the eyes of the crew. But inside, you are nothing more than a nervous gardener, whispering a silent prayer for the strange, beautiful, and troubling cargo you have brought all the way home. The ship finally docks at the port of London, and as you step onto the solid, grimy cobblestones, the England you've been dreaming of delivers a sharp sensory shock. The air is the first thing you notice. It's cold. Not just cool, but a damp, penetrating chill that seems to find every gap in your now thin tropical clothing. It smells of coal smoke, damp earth, and the murky, industrial scent of the Thames. After months of breathing the warm, sweet, humid air of Borneo, this feels like inhaling cold gravel. The colors are muted, a world painted in grays, browns, and the pale, watery green of a northern spring. This is the return journey's great, unheralded challenge, the shock of coming home. Your body, now fully acclimatized to the relentless heat of the equator, protests this sudden return to the gloom. You find yourself shivering uncontrollably, much to the amusement of the burly, red-faced dock workers. Your anxiety, which had been a low hum for months, now sharpens into a piercing note. The final leg of the journey, this short transit across London and into the countryside, is fraught with more immediate peril than any storm at sea. You supervise the unloading of your 6 Wardian cases with the frantic energy of a hen protecting her chicks. You watch, wincing, as the ship's crane hoists them from the hold and swings them precariously over the dock. You bark orders at the workmen, insisting they handle the precious cargo with a gentleness they normally reserve for fine china, not filthy crates of mud and leaves. The cases are loaded onto a specially hired spring-dampened wagon, and the slow, jostling journey through London's chaotic streets begins. Every lurch of the wagon, every bump from an uneven cobble, sends a jolt of fear through you. You imagine the glass panes cracking, the delicate roots being shaken from their fragile hold on the bark. It is, without a doubt, the most stressful. 2 hours of your entire life. Finally, you arrive at the country estate of Lord Harrington. The wagon crunches up a long, perfectly raked gravel drive. The contrast with the world you have just left is breathtaking. Here, nature has been tamed, disciplined, and bent to an aristocrat's will. The chaotic, life-choked tangle of the jungle is replaced by manicured lawns, geometric flower beds, and trees standing in quiet, dignified isolation. It is beautiful, orderly, and after the vibrant, violent energy of Borneo, it feels profoundly artificial, like a painting of a landscape. Rather than the real thing, you are not met by Lord Harrington. Instead, a stern, imposing figure is waiting for you on the steps of the service entrance. He is tall, with a severe face and a magnificent gray beard. This is Mr. MacLeod, the head gardener, a legend in the horticultural world. Here you stand before the embodiment of a quiet, social, and scientific debate. Mr. MacLeod is not dressed like a servant, but in a well-made tweed jacket and sturdy boots. His hands are the calloused, soil-stained hands of a laborer, but his eyes are the sharp, analytical eyes of a scientist. He represents a new breed of professional, a man whose encyclopedic knowledge of practical horticulture often surpassed that of his noble employer. He holds a station of immense power within this small kingdom, straddling the ambiguous line between upper servant and scientific authority. He wastes no time on pleasantries. He barely acknowledges you, his gaze fixed entirely on the Wardian. Cases. He circles the wagon, inspecting the seals, peering through the glass, his expression a mask of critical concentration. You are the celebrated hunter who braved the jungle, but you feel instantly demoted. Your job is done. His is just beginning. Your reputation, and the very survival of your discoveries, is now entirely in his hands. Mr. MacLeod leads the way to the greenhouses with a series of curt gestures. And you see it for the first time. Lord Harrington's glass palace. It is a breathtaking structure of white-painted iron and what seems like acres of glass gleaming in the weak afternoon sun. Inside, the air changes instantly. It is warm, humid, and filled with the familiar scent of damp earth and growing things. A controlled, sanitized echo of the jungle steam you left behind. The moment your precious cargo is safely inside, a junior gardener locks the heavy door behind you. The secrecy is palpable. This is another of the strange eccentricities of the orchid mania. Mr. MacLeod explains in his thick Scottish burr that Lord Harrington's chief rival, a neighboring earl, is known to send his own gardeners as spies, trying to bribe the staff for a single tidbit of information about new acquisitions. The arrival of your haul is treated with the gravity and security of a state secret. The true ceremony now begins. With the help of two other gardeners, Mr. MacLeod carefully pries open the lid of the first case. A puff of captured Bornean air, warm and loamy, escapes into the English greenhouse. With an almost religious reverence, he begins to inspect each plant. He lifts them out, examining the roots, the leaves, the pseudobulbs, making quiet, technical pronouncements. This one's dormant, as it should be. This one's showing signs of stress at the crown. Amateur packing on this dendrobium. He is a stern critic, and your heart sinks with every small criticism. But then he lifts out a particularly robust specimen, one you are especially proud of, a plant with broad, healthy leaves and a dozen plump pseudobulbs. You see a flicker of something in Mr. MacLeod's severe eyes. It is not praise, precisely, but a flash of pure, avaricious, scientific delight. It is the look of a master craftsman seeing a piece of rare, perfect material. He has found his new. Challenge. Your part in the drama is over. You are finally summoned to Lord Harrington's library, where he sits, exactly as you remember him. He has already received a full, detailed report from his head gardener. He offers you a cool, formal congratulations, asks a few pointed questions about the location of a specific specimen, and then slides a heavy bank draft across the desk. Your payment. The great adventure has concluded, not with a parade or a medal, but with a quiet, efficient financial transaction. As you walk back down the long gravel drive, you look back at the great glass house. A light is on inside, illuminating the panes against the twilight. Your plants are in there. Your journey has ended, but the story of your orchids, their struggle to survive and bloom in this strange new world, has only just begun. You feel a profound sense of accomplishment, but also a strange, hollow emptiness. You are a success, but you are also, once again, an outsider looking in. Your life in London resumes, but it is a life irrevocably changed. You are no longer the unknown illustrator of daisies. Your name is whispered in the halls of the Royal Horticultural Society, and your account of the expedition is a minor sensation. In the popular press, Lord Harrington's payment has made you comfortable, but you feel a strange detachment from the fame and the money. Your thoughts are elsewhere, in a quiet corner of the English countryside. Weeks after your return, a formal hand-delivered note grants you permission to visit the estate. You are not going to see your patron. You are going to see your plants. As you step from the crisp, cool English air and through the heavy glasshouse door, you leave England behind once more. You are entering the quiet kingdom of glass and steam yacht. The greenhouse is a self-contained world, a complex living machine. The first thing you notice is the sound, a gentle, soothing symphony of control. Nature. There is the quiet, constant hiss of steam from a vast network of thick, cast iron pipes that run along the walls and beneath the slatted wooden benches. You can hear the low, subterranean groan of the massive coal-fired boiler, the heart of awe. This artificial climate, situated in a brick building next door. Occasionally, there is the soft puff of a brass mister, as a gardener creates a localized cloud of humidity, or the gentle scrape of a small trowel against a clay pot. The air is warm and moist, thick with the clean, earthy scent of potting soil, sphagnum moss, and the faint, sweet perfume of a distant, blooming flower. This is not the chaotic, dangerous jungle you remember. This is the jungle tamed, ordered, and perfected, a testament to Victorian ingenuity and control that the gardeners themselves move with a quiet, monastic deliberation. They are a small team, led by the formidable Mr. MacLeod, and their work is a silent ballet of meticulous care. You watch a young gardener spend a full 10 minutes gently cleaning the broad leaves of a single plant with a soft sponge and a small brush, removing any speck of dust that might impede photosynthesis. Another adjusts a series of levers connected to a complex system of gears and pulleys high above, opening a line of ventilation windows by a precise half-inch to regulate the temperature. This is the great and widely recognized technical sophistication of these structures. They are not mere glass boxes. They are finely tuned instruments for the manipulation of life. The glass itself is shaded, some panes painted with a thin layer of whitewash to diffuse the harshness of the direct sun, creating a soft, luminous light that filters down onto the rows upon rows of terracotta pots that Mr. MacLeod, seeing you watching, offers a rare, brief tour. It is here you learn of the almost magical specificity of his work. He hasn't just put your plants on a bench. He has curated them into distinct, invisible geographies. The stove, he says, gesturing to the warmest, most humid corner of the glasshouse, where the hot water pipes from the boiler enter. For the lowland specimens. Here, the air is thick and soupy, almost identical to the coastal heat of Borneo. He then leads you to the far end of the structure, where the air feels noticeably cooler and drier. The cool house, he explains. For the plants from the higher elevations, they require a significant drop in temperature at night to initiate flowering. This was an eccentric but essential practice for the master gardener, creating multiple distinct microclimates within a single building. He was not just recreating the tropics. He was recreating a specific mountain, a specific valley, a particular, clearing in the forest. He was a conductor, and the pipes, vents, and shades were his orchestra. And his goal was to play a perfect symphony of climate dot. He stops at a bench where two plants of the same species sit side by side. One, from a previous expedition, is a model of perfection. Its leaves a deep, glossy green, a spectacular spray of flowers arching from its center. The other is one of yours. It is alive, certainly, but it looks sullen, smaller, its leaves lacking the vigor of its neighbor. It is here, on this potting bench, that you see the great Victorian nature versus nurture debate play out in real time. A plant's nature is simply the result of its circumstances, MacLeod says, his voice low and certain. In the jungle, it is engaged in a constant, desperate struggle for life. It is stunted by competition, damaged by insects. It merely survives. He taps the pot of the perfect blooming orchid. Here, we remove the struggle. We provide the perfect heat, the perfect light, the perfect moisture. We nurture it. We allow it to achieve the perfection that its wild nature could only ever hint at. This was the core belief of the great Victorian gardener. That man's rational, scientific mind could improve upon the messy chaos of the natural world. Their goal wasn't just to replicate the jungle. It was to create a better one. The debate among botanists and thinkers of the time raged. Was perfection innate, a matter of a plant's breeding and origin? Or could it be cultivated through tireless skill? Mr. MacLeod was firmly on the side of nurture, and this glasshouse was his laboratory, his evidence. His life's work. Your visit comes to an end. Mr. MacLeod nods a curt goodbye, his attention already back on a thermometer reading. You step back through the door, and the cold English air hits you once more. The sounds of the greenhouse, the hiss of steam, the puff of the mister are gone, replaced by the distant bleating of sheep. Your orchids, the living trophies of your great adventure, are no longer yours. They are subjects in Mr. MacLeod's quiet kingdom, patients in his plant hospital. They are tended with a skill and devotion that is almost frightening in its intensity. Your part is well and truly over. There is nothing left for you to do but wait, and to hope that all this science, all this art, can coax these wild, silent creatures into telling their final secret, the secret of their flower, so very far from home. Time, in the aftermath of your adventure, begins to behave in a peculiar way. The first few months are a whirlwind. You are the toast of geographical societies. Your illustrations from the jungle are published to great acclaim, and your name is mentioned in the same breath as the great plant hunters of the age. But fame, you learn, is a fire that consumes its fuel quickly. As months turn into a year, then too, the heat of the public's attention moves on to new discoveries, new heroes. Your great Bornean expedition recedes into recent history, and you settle back into a life that is a quieter, more comfortable version of what you had before. You are no longer just an illustrator of daisies, but the routine is much the same. The careful mixing of watercolors, the precise scratching of the pen on heavy paper. Yet beneath the calm surface of your new life, there is a constant, low-grade hum of anticipation. A single, unresolved question lingers. When will the orchids bloom? Your annual visit to Lord Harrington's estate becomes a quiet pilgrimage. Each year, you walk into the great glasshouse, and each year, you are greeted by the same sight. Under the meticulous, almost obsessive care of Mr. MacLeod, your plants are thriving. They are, in fact, magnificent. New leaves, glossy and robust, have unfurled. New, silvery roots, thick and healthy, creep over the edges of their terracotta pots and cling to the damp wooden benches. By every measure of horticultural success but one, the project is a triumph. But that one missing measure is everything. None of them have flowered. Not a single new species has produced a bud. This long, agonizing wait is a well-known chapter. In the story of any orchid hunter, the initial thrilling risk of the expedition is often dwarfed by the subsequent slow torture of patience. Your name, Lord Harrington's investment, and Mr. MacLeod's reputation are all held hostage by these silent, leafy, and deeply uncooperative plants. The lack of flowers becomes a subject of hushed gossip in the competitive world of elite horticulture. At meetings of the Royal Horticultural Society, you overhear the whispers. A great pity about Harrington's Bornean collection, a fellow member might say, stirring his tea. All that expense, and not a single bloom to show for it. The pressure on Mr. MacLeod is immense. During your visit in the third year, you notice him tending to one of your most promising specimens, a large plant you suspect is a new species of Paphiopedilum with an unusual intensity. He is spraying its leaves with a brownish, foul-smelling liquid. When you inquire, he looks at you with a flicker of embarrassment in his stern eyes and admits he is trying an old gardener's folk remedy, a diluted mixture of stale ale and soot, which some swear can shock a stubborn plant into bloom. This is the eccentric, desperate side of the obsession, born from the immense pressure to produce results. You've heard stories of frustrated growers trying everything from watering their plants with champagne to threatening them with the rubbish heap, all in an effort to coax out a flower. The persistent refusal of your orchids to bloom also sparks a more serious, scientific debate, one carried out in terse letters between collectors and in the pages of the Gardener's Chronicle. When a wild collected plant fails to flower for years on end, 3 theories emerge. The first, and most hopeful, is that the plants are simply in a prolonged state of dormancy. Proponents of this view argue that the plants are adjusting to the vastly different conditions of cultivation, slowly gathering the immense energy required to flower. Their advice is simply to have patience, a commodity that is in increasingly short supply. The second theory, the one to which Mr. MacLeod subscribes, is that there is a specific, unknown environmental trigger for flowering that he has so far failed to replicate. He launches into a series of meticulous, controlled experiments, trying to find this elusive key. He adjusts the temperature, lowering it by a precise number of degrees for a set number of weeks. He changes the light, shading the plants to mimic a monsoon season. He experiments with different potting mixtures, adding charcoal, broken pottery, even ground bone, trying to replicate the chemistry of their native soil. But the plants remain stubbornly, beautifully green. The third theory is the most pessimistic. The one that Lord Harrington is beginning to fear is true. It is the possibility that the plants, or at least the most unique among them, are simply sterile. Perhaps they are natural hybrids, a chance cross-pollination in the wild that has resulted in a beautiful but reproductively useless organism, a mule of the plant kingdom. If this is true, then your expedition, for all the knowledge gained, is a horticultural and financial dead end. A new sterile orchid is little more than a green curiosity. There is, of course, no way to know for certain without a bloom. And so the debate rages on, a quiet intellectual war waged over your silent, uncooperative plants. 5 years pass. The world moves on, and so do you. The initial flush of wealth from your expedition has been invested wisely. You have married a kind, intelligent woman who knows more about English literature than she does about tropical botany, and you have bought a small, handsome house in a leafy suburb of London. You have your own garden, your own small greenhouse where you grow. Roses and carnations, simple, reliable flowers that bloom every year without any fuss. The Bornean orchids are no longer the central focus of your life. They are a distant, unresolved story, a mystery you are beginning to accept may never be solved. Your annual visit to the estate now feels less like an exciting check-in and more like a somber visit to a ward of beautiful, incurable patients. You stand beside Mr. MacLeod, both of you older now, and look at the rows of magnificent green failures. The hope has worn thin, replaced by a quiet shared resignation. Lord Harrington has lost interest, his attention and money now focused on a new hunter he has sent to Peru. Your great adventure, it seems, is destined to end not with a triumphant, colorful explosion, but with a long, drawn-out, and deeply disappointing silence. 7 years. 7 years have passed since you saw the coast of Borneo shrink into the sea. Your life is full. You are a husband, a father to a young daughter who loves the simple daisies in your garden, and your reputation as England's finest botanical illustrator is secure. The Bornean expedition is a story you occasionally tell, a distant chapter from a younger man's life. Then, on a cold, drizzly evening in late October, a boy on a sweating horse arrives at your door. He bears an urgent, mud-splattered message. It contains only 10 words, written in the severe, spiky handwriting of Mr. MacLeod. The Paphiopedilum. A bud. It will open tonight. Come at once. You travel without a moment's hesitation, the train rattling through a dark and sleeping countryside. You arrive at the estate late in the night and make your way directly to the glasshouse. A single oil lantern burns inside, casting long, dancing shadows. You find Mr. MacLeod sitting on a stool beside the bench, a tartan blanket wrapped around his shoulders. He looks older, his face more deeply lined than you remember, but his eyes glitter with a fierce, youthful intensity. The atmosphere is not one of giddy excitement, but of a deep, silent, and reverent tension. You are participating in a strange and sacred tradition, the nighttime vigil. For weeks, he explains in a low whisper, this single stubborn plant has been slowly pushing forth a bud. Now tonight, he feels it is time. The two of you sit in the warm, humid darkness, the only light coming from the single lantern. The familiar sounds of the greenhouse surround you, the gentle drip of condensation from a broad leaf, the low hiss of the heating pipes, the sound of the autumn wind rattling against the glass panes outside. You do not speak. There is nothing. To say, you simply wait. Around 2 a.m, it begins. You are both leaning forward, your faces close to the plant. The bud, a tight, glossy sheath of deep purple, has begun to tremble slightly. Then, with a slowness that is almost agonizing, the outer sepal begins to separate. It does not pop or burst, but unfurls with a silent, deliberate grace. Over the next hour, a miracle unfolds in the warm pool of lantern light. A petal, veined with a shade of green so dark it is almost black, peels away. Then another. The characteristic pouch, the slipper of the orchid, reveals itself, a taut, gleaming structure of mottled maroon and brown. The colors are bizarre, otherworldly, more like the patterns on a reptile's skin or an insect's carapace than a flower. It is stranger, darker, and more magnificent than anything you could have possibly imagined. You and MacLeod, the man who found it and the man who nurtured it, the hunter and the gardener, watch in complete, breathless silence. The years of waiting, of frustration, of doubt, of quiet disappointment, they all dissolve in this one perfect, silent moment as the flower achieves its final, extraordinary form. Out the news, the next day, causes a brief but intense flurry of excitement in the small, insular world of English horticulture. A telegram is dispatched to Lord Harrington, who is wintering on the French Riviera. The Times runs a small but laudatory column. For a week, a steady stream of carriages arrives. At the estate, disgorging enthusiasts and rival collectors who have come to gaze upon MacLeod's triumph. But you notice, with a strange sense of detachment, that the frenzy is not what it would have been 7 years ago. The world has changed. This is a recognized historical fact. The great, burning fever of Orchidelirium is beginning to cool. New, revolutionary techniques for propagating orchids from seed and sterile. Flasks are being perfected in Belgium and at Kew Gardens. Rare orchids are still treasured, but they are no longer the near mythical beings they once were. The possibility of raising them in their thousands in European laboratories has broken the absolute monopoly of the wild collected specimen. A new bloom is still a triumph, but it no longer commands the front pages or the fantastically speculative. Prices of the manias peak. The obsession has not vanished, but it is becoming a quieter, more democratic, more gentle hobby. You feel this shift in your own experience. You receive many letters of congratulation, but the tone is different. The age of the lone, swashbuckling naturalist hero is slowly fading. The new celebrities of the botanical world are not the adventurers returning with tales of peril, but the patient, methodical men in white coats, the scientists in the great institutions who are turning botany from an adventure into a modern science. Your journey to Borneo, which once felt like the very cutting edge of discovery, now has a faint air of being old-fashioned, a romantic relic from a bygone era. This is a debate you see playing out in the journals, the slow transition from the fame of the individual explorer to the prestige of the scientific institution. You are not bitter about it. You are simply living through the turning of a page. Before you return to London, you have one last moment alone with the flower. It sits on its bench in the great glass house, a silent alien presence. This moment is the true prize. It is not the newspaper columns, not the approving nods from your peers, not even Lord Harrington's glowing telegram. The real victory is this: quiet shared accomplishment between you, a stubborn Scottish gardener, and a remarkable plant that traveled halfway across the world to finally reveal its secret in the heart of an English autumn. You realize the reward you were chasing was never the public glory. It was this quiet, profound, and deeply personal satisfaction. The fever has faded, in the world and in your own heart. And in its place is something better, something calmer, more durable, and infinitely more beautiful. Decades pass. The world rushes forward, trading the steam and iron of the Victorian age for the electricity and anxieties of a new century. You are an old man now. Your hair is white, your movements are slower, and your hands, which once held both a brush and a machete, are now marked by the fine tremors of age. You still draw, though. It is the one constant thread that runs through your entire life. One bright spring morning, you find yourself at the Covent Garden Flower Market, and you see a sight that would have been impossible, unthinkable, in your youth. Orchids. They are everywhere. Not sad, dormant lumps in a crate at Stevens's rooms, but buckets filled with blooming sprays of cymbidiums, pots of cheerful, frilly cattleyas, all for sale for a few shillings apiece. A clerk buys his sweetheart a corsage made from a flower that you once would have risked your life to acquire. The great historical fact of your later years is this: the orchid has been democratized. The perfection of growing them from seed in sterile laboratory flasks has broken the monopoly of the jungle. The mania is over. The fever has long since broken, leaving behind a widespread and gentle appreciation. The living jewels are no longer the exclusive property of kings and industrialists. They belong to everyone. A letter arrives one day, written on heavy, black-bordered stationery. Lord Harrington has passed away at his villa in Italy. His heirs, you learn, have little interest in his costly botanical obsession and are selling the country estate. A few weeks later, drawn by a sense of needing to close a final chapter, you make one last journey there. The great glasshouse still stands, but it is a ghost of its former self. Several panes of glass are cracked, replaced by unsightly wooden boards. The white paint of the iron frame is peeling, revealing patches of rust. Mr. MacLeod, you are told, retired to his native Scotland years ago. The new owners, a family whose fortune comes from manufacturing, plan to tear the structure down. It is too expensive to heat, they say, and they need the space for modern stables. This, you reflect, is the eccentric and melancholy fate of so many of these grand Victorian structures. They were magnificent palaces built to house a fleeting obsession, and as the passion that funded them waned, they began their slow, inevitable decay, too costly to maintain, monuments to a forgotten fever. You are allowed to walk through the quiet, neglected kingdom one last time. It is still warm inside, the heating system still functioning on a low setting, but the atmosphere of meticulous care is gone. Weeds grow in the gravel paths. Some of your original plants are still there, overgrown and sprawling, looking more like their wild cousins than the pampered showpieces they once were. On a decaying wooden bench, you find a discarded copy of a botanical journal. You pick it up and read an article by a young, university-educated botanist. He writes passionately about the scourge of the Victorian orchid hunters, blaming their rapacious greed for the decimation of wild populations, for driving several species to the brink of extinction. You feel a familiar, faint sting. It is the final, unresolved debate of your life's work. What is your true legacy? Were you and your kind romantic heroes of science, expanding the world's knowledge and bringing unparalleled beauty back to a gray corner of the world? Or were you destructive agents of empire, plundering the natural resources of a land that was not yours for profit and fame? You look at a magnificent Vanda orchid, one of yours, its roots now clinging to the cast iron heating pipes, its flowers blooming defiantly in the dusty air. You know the truth is not as simple as the young botanist believes. You know the damage that was done in the heat of the fever, but you also know the wonder, the knowledge gained, the incredible beauty that was revealed. You believe you were something in between, a flawed and ambitious man of your time, driven by a complex mixture of ego, scientific curiosity, and a genuine, deep-seated love for the beautiful, strange things you sought. You were not a saint, but you were not a villain either. You were simply a hunter, and you can make your peace with that. The scene of your final years is not this decaying palace, but your own small, well-tended garden. You are sitting in your own modest greenhouse, a comfortable, human-sized space that smells of damp earth and roses. Your daughter, now a young woman, brings you a cup of tea. On the potting bench before you sits a familiar plant, a direct descendant, a division taken years ago of the very Paphiopedilum that took 7 years to bloom. A gift from Mr. MacLeod upon his retirement. It is in flower. Its strange reptilian beauty is captivating as it was on that long ago midnight. You are not drawing it for a scientific publication or a wealthy patron. Your hand, though less steady, moves with its old familiar grace. You are drawing it for the simple, quiet pleasure of the act itself, for the love of its form, its color, its impossible existence. Your piece, you realize, is not in the faded newspaper clippings in your scrapbook or the echoes of your youthful fame. It is here, in the warmth of your own small greenhouse, with the scent of tea in the air, a flower that holds your entire past, and the simple, satisfying scratch of a graphite pencil on thick, textured paper. The great hunt is a distant memory. The debates about your legacy can be left to the historians. Your final reward is this quiet, present moment dot, and so our story comes to a gentle close. The image of the old man, sketching a single perfect flower in his quiet garden, stays with you. Feel the peace of that moment settling over you now. The grand adventures, the long sea voyages, the anxious waits, they have all softened, fading into the peaceful twilight of a tale that has been told. You can let the details drift away now, like pollen on a soft breeze. All that matters is the feeling of calm that remains. The quiet satisfaction of a journey completed. Imagine the gentle hum of the world winding down for the night. The light outside your window is soft, and the sounds of the day have faded into a distant murmur. Inside, you are safe. You are comfortable. You can feel the weight of your own body, heavy and relaxed, sinking gently into the surface beneath you. Your breathing is slow, and even a quiet rhythm like the softest of drum beats, in and out. Each breath carries you a little deeper into tranquility, a little farther away from the waking world. Think of all the greenhouses across the world, dark and silent now. The flowers within have folded their petals. The leaves are still. They are resting, gathering their strength in the cool, quiet darkness, waiting for the morning sun. There is nothing left for them to do, and there is nothing left for you to do either. The story is over. Your only task now is to rest, to allow your mind to become as still and peaceful as that quiet, sleeping glasshouse. You are an essential, part of our nappy family, where every night is soothing, and every story ends in a place of deep, untroubled calm. You are safe here. You are valued. And you can finally, gently let go. You've reached the end of another cozy nappy tale. Sleep. Well, and remember, you're always welcome here. Sweet dreams, nappy friend.